Privilege has its membership. Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 through 34. The debate over God's foreknowledge and fairness at the birth of the twins Esau and Jacob must be balanced with the twins' independence, interaction, and interest before, during, and after the moment of birth. While Jacob was irrepressible at birth, Esau was indifferent in adulthood. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16 and 17 emphasizes Esau's loss and not Jacob's gain. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Nevertheless, Esau's loss was Jacob's gain. A church member noted, God gives you personality, but you form your own character. How is it possible for some people to increase what they have while others ignore all they have? What kind of worth and attitude should we place on spiritual things? First, choose what is good for yourself. Genesis chapter 25, verses 27 through 30. The problem of Esau was that he erred on the side of rashness and recklessness. Esau knew how to hunt, but he did not know how to live. The dark side of Esau was that he catered to and caved in the lure of sight, sound, and smell at all cost. Esau thirsted for temporary things and not permanent things, lived on borrowed things rather than earned things, and craved for physical things and never spiritual things. The first word from Esau's mouth was imperative, feed. Verse 30. Ironically, the hunter was hunted by his own greed. Sympathy for Esau and blame on Jacob is natural, but nonsense. Esau was not carefree or careless for the second, but for many years. He married not one, but two idol-worshipping Hittite women, doubling the grief of his parents in Genesis chapter 26, verses 34 and 35. So much so that his mother Rebekah was disgusted with living in Genesis chapter 27, verse 46. Second, cherish what is given to you. Genesis chapter 25, verses 31 through 33. A birthright was a privilege with a role and responsibility, not for the reputation and respectability. Esau, as their heir, stood to gain twice as much inheritance as anyone in the family in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 17. But he had a cavalier attitude toward his favored status. To him, it was all about status and not service, taking rather than giving, and a burden and not a blessing. Jacob, on the other hand, was the number 2 son, second string, second banana, second chair, but he was second to none. Sell, in verse 31, and swear, in verse 33, are Jacob's forceful imperatives, a contrast to Esau's feeble imperative, have and feed, in verse 30. Esau was passive, in verse 30, have and feed me. Pessimistic, in verse 31, I am about to die, and pathetic, in verse 31, what good is the birthright to me? Jacob, on the other hand, would be the soul, spine, and symbol of an emerging nation. Third, count what is gone from you. Genesis chapter 25, verse 34. It's been said there are 3 kinds of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who have no idea what happened. The reason for Esau's rejection was due to his passive-aggressive rejection of his birthright. He was indifferent, ignorant, and irreligious man, passive and poor in retaining what he had and regretting what he did. God did not undermine Esau's fate. He just unmasked his future. Esau's life was characterized by excesses, exaggerations, and excuses. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16. In conclusion, it's been said, when a man with money meets a man with experience, the man with the experience ends up with the money, and the man with the money ends up with experience. Live and learn. 95. Have you taken for granted God's gifts to you, His guidance in your life, and His grace for your weakness? May our lives mirror good choices, godly character, and genuine commitment.